What's up everyone, this is All I Talk is Tech, and unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I believe that Apple will be removing 3D Touch within the next iPhone iteration, and there's actually a lot of good reason to believe this with the recent release of iOS 13. So what really made me notice this was I was trying to change the location of an application on my home screen, and I noticed it was so confusing trying to move it. So if you hold down on an application, it brings up the 3D touch options. It no longer brings up the traditional wiggle icon mode along with the X on the app icon. So if you want to move an app, it's like a mix between 3D touch and you have to hold on it really long and then move it. It's very weird. It doesn't feel right. It just feels really complicated, and every time I do it, I always mess something up. So it doesn't look like that on camera, but if you have iOS 13, you would know. So if you also try other elements using 3D Touch, it also feels very strange. So I wondered if there was a fix to this. Maybe there was a way to fix the odd way that 3D Touch felt on my iOS 13 device, and it turns out there is. So taking a look at other iPhone models, you can see that the models without 3D Touch are able to perform the same tasks as the ones with 3D Touch. So even though they're lacking the capability of having that feedback and the 3D touch capability, they are still able to have the same features. So what I did was I turned off 3D touch on my iPhone 10, and the experience was so much better. It was very strange, and I feel weird saying this, but it was so much better without 3D touch. But that's just because of the lagginess of the operating system. So I do prefer having 3D touch on iOS 12, but in iOS 13, because of the fact that it was less laggy and was so much easier to use because 3D touch was turned off, everything just seemed to flow better. And not having 3D touch could allow for a cheaper iPhone to be made, which I think is a plus. So for example, the iPhone XR is a lot cheaper than the other iPhones, and of course we notice that it doesn't have 3D touch. And it makes sense because the iPhone XR doesn't have 3D touch, and another thing is that a lot of the features that have 3D touch have been moved over to other iPhones without 3D touch. So rather than force pressing on the keyboard, you can just hold your finger down on the space bar and drag with your fingers. So as strange as this feels from someone who traditionally uses 3D touch all the time, it's still doable. So I do believe that Apple's going to be removing 3D touch in the next iPhone. It makes sense because their current version of software doesn't work well with it, but it still has all the same features and works fine when you turn off 3D touch. Now the main downside of this is I believe that if we don't have 3D touch, we're going to lose the ability to have these really cool, accurate live wallpapers that can change the direction of the photo, whether or not it's going forward or backwards or in reverse, depending on how hard you press or push on the screen. So I think that's going to be a feature that I'll definitely miss, unfortunately, if Apple removes 3D touch on the newer iPhones. So that is about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video isn't true, but from the way things look, it makes sense. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and as always, peace.